Hey, we're going to make another recipe today. For the first time, I'm going to try out the perfect sandwich loaf recipe from Noreen's Kitchen. She has a YouTube channel, and several other ladies that I watch on YouTube have tried this and really enjoyed it, so we thought we'd give it a try today. Instead of using the KitchenAid to mix it, I'm going to go ahead and use the bread machine to just do our dough, and then after the first rise, then we'll take the dough out and I'll do it by hand after that. So our ingredients are going to be 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and then we have 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of dry milk powder, and in there is a teaspoon of salt, and then we have 2 tablespoons of sugar, and we have 2 teaspoons of our yeast, and 1.5 cups of warm water. And I'm watching my temperature on that. It's at about 110, so it's ready to go. First thing we're going to do for the bread machine is we're going to put in all of our wet ingredients, and then we add our dry, and then the last thing we do is add the yeast. And then I'll put it in the machine, and it'll run for about 1.5 hours, and then I'll bring you back and show you how it has, what it looks like once it has rose, and we will work on turning it into a loaf for sandwich bread. Okay, so our bread finished in the bread maker, and I started to kind of punch it down before I remembered to turn the camera on. So we're going to punch our dough down, and then we're going to roll it out in a nice rectangle that will fit in my big bread pan. And then we will roll it up from there very tightly to fit into the pan. So we're going to roll it out in a rectangle, with the longest side being approximately as long as our pan. That way we know we'll get good edge-to-edge coverage in the pan. Get the sticky dough off of me. You can probably hear Bentley in the background. He just got up from his nap and he's having a snack. Okay, lots of flour. Let's see. Kind of start to get it rolled out. I have a pretty long bread pan. Doesn't have to be exact, just pretty close. You'll be fine. We can adjust as we roll it up, and then once we start kind of pushing it down into our pan, you can make more adjustments there. Okay. And as you roll it together, I'll show you, you have to pinch the seam in the back. Pretty good. I got some air bubbles I'm trying to get out. I'll add a little more flour in some sticky spots. Okay, so what we're going to do is just roll it very tight. I like to kind of pinch my ends as I go too. That helps to have a little bit finer outcome. Kind of sticking them in and keeping it a pretty balanced size. Then you don't have to do so much work at the end when you're putting it into the pan. We definitely want to keep it pretty tight. I'm kind of stretching the roll and turning it, if that makes any sense. You can see where the end is getting longer as we go, so it'll... Alright. I'm going to roll it this way a little bit. And then what you're going to do when you have that end piece, get it pretty tightly overlapped, and you're just going to... This dough is super sticky. I think we may have needed about 1/2 cup more flour. It's pretty rainy outside, and I find that sometimes you have to alter your amount of flour depending on your weather, but we'll make it work. Okay. Now I have this plastic cutting board that I'm using, and it slides on my counter. So what I did was I got a piece of this. It's like a mat you would put under a rug, and I got that at the Dollar Tree, and I just stick it underneath my mat so when I'm rolling my different doughs and things out, or even cutting a large piece of meat, it doesn't slide all over the place. Okay, so then I've sprayed my pan pretty good, and so we're just going to put our dough in there and kind of push it around to the bottom of the pan. Okay, and get it in all the little corners. And just try to even it up so it'll be pretty. Okay, now we've got it in. We're going to let this rise for another 30 to 45 minutes. We want it to come up. I think I'm going to put mine in the oven when it comes just to the top. I'm not going to let it go above the top of the pan, although the instructions say, you know, you could let it go about an inch above. But I think we'll stop ours probably right at the top. So we'll come back and show you once it's risen to the top of the pan before we put it in the oven. Okay, so the bread has risen a little bit, but not, I don't know what's going on. It's only about halfway, and it's kind of deflating on itself. So I don't know what is going on with it. What I'm going to do is go ahead and bake it at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes and see what happens. And I'm really starting to think maybe there was not enough flour in it because, like I said, it is pretty rainy and wet here, and sometimes that can make a difference when you're trying to bake bread. So we're going to go ahead and cook it since it's already prepared and ready to go in the oven. It can't hurt to see what happens. So we will come back when it's done and let you know what happens, and either it'll come out okay or this will be a nice learning experience for everyone. Okay, so we finally finished the bread. I don't know why it fell on itself and wouldn't really rise very well. The texture of it is fine. I had a plain piece and it tasted fine. It's a short loaf. I wasn't thinking and should have probably doubled it for the size pan that I had. But the top has like this fence around it from where it fell after it rose before we baked it. But it tastes great, and I had made it into a grilled cheese. So the bread seems to be fine. So I definitely recommend giving it a try. Maybe don't use such a big pan as I did, or double your recipe so that it'll be a little bit taller. But again, it came out fine in the end, so we'll definitely be trying this again in a more appropriate pan or doubling the recipe.